Today on Locked On Canadians, a familiar face joins us to talk about the outlook for the rest of the season. We want to do a Laval check-in, but first, a really fun hypothetical exercise. What if Kent Hughes was Team Canada's general manager?
You are Locked On Canadians, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadians. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful current co-host, Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian. And today we are joined by our equally wonderful former co-host, podcaster emeritus, and Jacob Fowler respecter, Scott Matla. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I am doing great. That was too many titles and too much praise for me that my therapist is going to have a field day when I go to explain why I'm not accepting any of that right now. But I am always happy to hop on the show, especially now that the Olympics are over. The NHL is a few days away from coming back, which means if it's anything like the last couple times we've been together on a show, something will happen within a day to 3 hours after the show that will put all of this immediately out of date. So looking forward to seeing what Kent Hughes is going to do.
I feel like last time, like, did you make the Line trade happen? I feel like you did that. You made a lot of stuff happen.
I can't remember if it was the Line trade or if they traded Bolduc over the summer the last time I was on. Something happened the last time I was on because we were literally in the post part of this show, and I told Ian somebody got traded that we were talking about in there. I can't remember what it was, but it might have been the Carrier
we all
trade.
hung out. We were in Montreal, and we were like at the Laura and I were at the game, and Scott texted us. They're about to get Texier. So like Scott is our newsbreaker, but like at least 2/3 of us need to be together in order for something to happen. I mean, we're gonna be together later on. I imagine something very weird will happen at that point.
Yes, everybody watch out for the last home game of the season. Something crazy will happen. Hopefully something good crazy. All right, today we are going to talk about, I really wanted to talk about what would happen if Team Canada were actually modern and forward thinking and chose Kent Hughes as its GM for the men's hockey team. And then we're going to talk about Laval, how they're doing. We've been woefully neglectful as we've been preoccupied with the Montreal Canadiens and with the Olympics. And then we're going to talk about there's 25 games left in the season. What's the outlook? What are we expecting? We already talked a little bit about, some of the teams we need to worry about before starting recording. So we'll get into that. So I think the first thing that I want to say is this is obviously just a thought exercise, right? I thought it would be really interesting. And I want to, by the end of this segment, we should know if this is something that we think should happen. But I also just want to reiterate that Hockey Canada is extremely archaic. They love their guys. They don't like modern things. They don't like new thinkers. So this is right now, it's just a thought experiment. But I want to ask you guys, I want to look at Kent Hughes as a talent evaluator and a roster a roster builder, and think about what would happen, what would you see in Team Canada, the men's team, if Kent Hughes were in charge? Scott, I'll start with you.
I think the biggest thing is that one, I know you guys talked about, the gold medal game and everything. And my thought on this is that I think John Cooper is still your coach, but John Cooper is also part of the reason why they lost in the gold medal game. Not getting into the goaltending discourse. I think that most of this roster looks very similar to what it was. My biggest thing is I think Connor Bedard is on this team over Sam Bennett. Potentially over Tom Wilson, though. I admit Wilson's had a very good statistical season. I understand why they brought him to this tournament, but I look at someone like Connor Bedard, and then I look at someone like Matthew Shaver or Noah Dobson on this team over Drew Doughty, who barely played, Colton Parayko, who looked a little bit slow as well. And I think that Kent Hughes is going to bring some of that youth with him. That's something he's done in Montreal, is that he's given those young guys the opportunity to thrive, and there's an opportunity to put them in the best position to succeed. He will do that. And I think Connor Bedard adds a different element to that bottom six. He's a little bit of a jerk, as we saw this year. We were there for his temper tantrum game against the Canadiens, and you can't be afraid to go up against a team like the US, that if you're only building your team for that game, you have to win that game in the first place. And I think that bringing more skill with how they took it to the US and even the Czechs and the Finns and everything when they had to, adding even more skill on that separates those games in a different way. It's not a comeback. It's more of a comfortable coast to the finish line as they kind of modernize the defense there. I don't think Doughty or Parayko are reasons why they lost that, but there's an opportunity to improve on that. It's like, okay, it's a decent, baseline. You can do better on that. And I think having someone fresher, a little bit more mobile, like a Matthew Schaefer, like a Noah Dobson, really allows that defense to get things going a little bit more, especially after they lost Josh Morrissey. There wasn't that other really, they have obviously Cale Makar and Devin Taves, but beyond that, it's the defense didn't really seemingly stand out all that much.
I do want to go back to that point you made when I asked Ian this. You talked about how you brought players just for that one game against the United States. And to be fair, Tom Wilson's best game was against the United States, right? And he was a liability in a lot of the other games. So Ian, in your mind, is Kent Hughes the kind of guy who thinks, all right, I need to take one guy who's a good penalty killer. I need to take one guy who's going to, get in Tkachuk's face? Or is he just more a best player available type of guy?
I think one of the things that sets Kent Hughes apart, and the one transaction that I think of that kind of illustrates this, is that he's comfortable finding those types of players, but not necessarily with the name recognition that we've all associated with that kind of role. Like Tom Wilson, Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, name recognition, right? Like those are store brands of the kinds of roles that you're trying to play, right? I think about the Mike Matheson acquisition in this case, because did he acquire Mike Matheson thinking this guy can be our top defenseman playing in every single situation possible? I don't think so. At least he didn't broadcast it that way, but I think he did think that was a possibility for that player. I think of his first draft, right? We're all sitting there going, they need a center. Shane Wright's there. Make it happen. And he said, we do need a center. It's not that one. And he found a different one. He went and got Kirby Dach. Now the jury's out on whether or not that's worked, but it shows that he's not afraid to buck the trend when it comes to the name recognition aspect. I kind of wonder though, isn't that kind of what we've, the whole, he's not afraid to go against what people want him to do. We ragged on Bill Guerin for that the whole time. We ragged on Doug Armstrong with the Blues for just going with the guys that they know and not really caring about the rest of it. So I wonder how much of that would actually hurt Kent Hughes in this situation. I will say, we talked about, that this is a thought exercise. Well, the thought exercise aspect of this for me says that this has a very low likelihood of happening, because I don't have any evidence to back this up. But I don't think general managers around the league have a lot of fond memories of Kent Hughes, the player agent. Mm-hmm. He costed them a lot of money. Mm-hmm. That's kind of his job, is to secure as much money as possible for his client. I genuinely wonder what that sort of relationship would work like or look like going into this. I mean, I don't think they're big fans of Kyle Dubas either, and they kept showing him at this thing, so who knows?
I think for me, it's more the idea that he hasn't paid his dues, right? He didn't come up through playing. He wasn't a general manager for 20 years or whatever. I feel like that would count against him. And again, Hockey Canada does not like to do progressive, forward-thinking things. I think the one thing that I would trust in Kent Hughes is that he's not afraid to say he was wrong. He's not afraid to go back on a decision that he's made in the past. The Montreal Canadiens are not explicitly saying it, but they know that there's a problem in goal and they're not hiding it, right? They don't have rose-colored glasses about it. And yes, Jakub Dobeš is stepping up right now, but for a large part of the season, goaltending was a huge question mark. So I don't see them sticking with a guy right now. Whether or not Canada has available options 2 or 4 years from now is a very different conversation. But if if you stuck with the guy for 4 Nations or the World Cup or whatever, and that guy's not working out anymore and he's not doing well anymore, I don't think that Kent Hughes is the kind of guy to be married to his own decision. And he would be the kind of guy who'd be like, okay, this isn't working. We need another plan, because we have seen this time and time again here in Montreal. This isn't working. We're going to try our best. We're going to put all of the pieces together to give this person the best shot. But at the end of the day, if we need to turn around and go back on it, that's what we're going to do. All right. We rambled a lot about this. I really want your ideas as well, listeners. Like, please tell us what you think, because this is something where, I just thought about it. I'm like, what if instead of old school hockey, we take one of the more modern, like bolder, forward thinking GMs and put them in charge? You still have Team Canada's talent up and down, and you'll see what happens. So please send us your thoughts on this. In the meantime, we are here with our Laval Rocket correspondent / podcaster emeritus. So we're going to check in and see what's going on with those guys in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. Here on Locked On Canadiens, we use Game Time to go to hockey games all the time. It's so easy. We just pull up the Game Time app and we pick an upcoming game, and then we have our tickets locked within minutes. And we love seeing the all-in price up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout. We can see the view from our seats, so we know what we're getting into before we buy it. And honestly, there's so many events there, and you can get great last minute options for NBA tickets showing up at solid prices, NHL tickets, any event, concerts, all of that. Everything just feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets or any tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. The trade deadline is here. Join the Everydayer Club for ad-free audio, access to our group chat on Discord, and more. Use code DEADLINE ahead of the trade deadline for 1 month free. Join now at lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com or hit the link in the show notes. All right, we are back with our wonderful former co-host, Scott Matla, Locked On Canadiens Laval Rocket correspondent, podcaster emeritus, Jacob Fowler respecter, Adam Engstrom enthusiast, so many titles. Let's talk about how the Laval Rocket are doing. It had a bit of an interesting weekend with Jacob Fowler being sick and lots of penalties.
Yes, that will be a continuing trend that you'll notice in this, and that I'm looking through the AHL stats right now, and I'm pretty sure the Rocket they are in second place. Rockford leads the AHL with 915 penalty minutes. The Rocket are second with 869. Not so nice penalty minutes in that. Some of it is well earned. Some of it is reputation. Some of it is just, you can be Florian Jacki and you think you scored a goal and a guy comes at you and you just punch him in the face anyways. So some things never change with this team. They're playing very good hockey right now. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10 games, sitting atop the North Division. They've got a 7-point lead on Syracuse. Syracuse, even with their 2 games in hand, cannot catch the Rocket at this point right now. It's a very strong season from the Rocket, not quite where they were at last year, where they're winning 10, 11 games at a time, but they are constantly picking up points this season by just playing really solid hockey across the board. The league itself has tightened up a little bit. They're third in the Eastern Conference, and I believe fourth overall in the league, behind the Providence Bruins, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and the Grand Rapids Griffins, who started the season like 25-1. So like nobody was going to catch up to Grand Rapids, unfortunately. It's the hard part for them is that they play in a division that you are a 2-game losing streak from being out of the playoffs and a 2-game winning streak from being in like second place in the division. Good friend of ours, Jay Foster and I talk about this all the time, is that it's the dumbest division, and why can't it ever possibly be normal at any point in time? The last 3 years have just been a bloodbath for whichever team ends up even winning the division going into the playoffs. It's just, you've been through hell and back through the regular season, then you got to go play this team in the playoffs when the games matter even more, unfortunately.
If there's any aspect of this team that Montreal Canadiens fans will be intimately familiar with, it will be goaltending, because everybody's been holding their breath and worrying about it and, kind of keeping an eye on how Fowler's doing, et cetera, et cetera. So if I were to say, can you please talk a little bit about how the offense has been this year and how the defense has been this year? Like, how would you kind of summarize it in short sentences, or like just like one thought or one theme?
The team can score goals. They have the fifth most goals in the AHL. They have 170 goals scored this year. The top team in the league has 179. So they are not far behind that. They are also one of the best defensive teams in the AHL. They've only allowed 137 goals this year. Some of the teams at the top have played less game, like 4 or 5 less games. So the numbers are a little bit skewed on that. But one of the only teams that's in front of them is Syracuse in their own division. And Syracuse only allowed 128 goals with 2 less games played. They're basically on even footing there. And the fact that the Rocket are seemingly so good defensively while continuing to take so many penalties is a credit to both goaltenders, Kaapo Kähkönen and Jacob Fowler, in net there. But defensively, this is a team that kind of shuffled through. They started the year without David Reinbacher. Adam Engstrom was called up for a little bit. They didn't have Mark Delgaizo, who was up and down, up and down. Josh Jacobs was out injured. Toby Bisson was out injured for a little bit, and just rotating guys through constantly on that. But now they've seemingly got their group together of Engstrom and Trudeau, Reinbacher and Bisson, and then Klerman and Delgaizo, or whomever that they want to on that third pair that they rotate through. And the biggest thing is that they just get the puck out of their zone. There's not a lot of second thought behind that. If they've got it, they're looking for the breakout. They're looking to clear it. They don't want to waffle with the puck in their zone. They want to constantly be moving that. And that comes in where some of the issue comes in, is that when they can't get their breakout game going and they kind of get hemmed in a little bit, things get tired, they get a little bit messy, but that's any team really in that. But you can see it. They quickly move the puck. When Adam Engstrom is on his game, he gets the puck behind the net, he spins off a guy, and he's down the ice already at that point. It's out of their zone, and the breakout is starting. It's attacking with numbers, and that's helping them out, because the best defense is a good offense. It's keeping the puck away from your netminders. And when it's in the zone, Jacob Fowler and Kaapo Kähkönen have been really, really good. They're 2 of the best goalies in the AHL this year. They have 18 and 15 wins respectively, 3 shutouts between them, and their numbers look good. I know that, save percentage and goals against is not the best way to judge a goaltender, but they're good. They're really good for a league that has nights where there's a ton of goals going in sometimes. It's what you would want for the Rocket around a young, still developing team.
We do love zone exits, don't we?
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned like the defense has problems when they're not able to move the puck quickly, because that's something on this show I've noted about the Canadiens. When the other teams have a really effective forecheck, it's difficult for the Canadiens to get going, especially because they don't have a goalie who can go behind the net and play the puck with any kind of confidence. One of the things about Fowler that, he made some mistakes when he was up in Montreal, but the desire to want to do it, I think, far outplaces what we already have with the Canadiens. I think when it comes to the Rocket, I think the big question for Canadiens fans everywhere is David Reinbacher. And it's, when are we going to see this guy? I think the Canadiens have done well to insulate him by keeping us satiated with a bunch of shiny toys up in Montreal, right? Like, we're not, it's not like you look at what's happening in Philadelphia right now with Michkov, the guy that the Canadiens passed on in order to take Reinbacher. And because there's not much else happening there, he wears a lot of what's going on. It's a really tough situation that's happening with that player. But like with Reinbacher, they don't have that. But at the same time, like I still think they are going to need to graduate him to the NHL soon. Like, are they any closer to that now than they were at the beginning of the season?
I think so, because it's been so tough, and this is not all his fault. He, got hurt in Austria, missed some time, came in, and they kind of integrated him slowly into the lineup, which is fair. He's had a full season already. He's young. You don't want to throw him right in the deep end and, risk that. And then last year in that preseason game where he just takes an odd spill and he's out for several months and misses a whole bunch of development time. And then it's a game on, maybe a game or two off, a game on, game or two off until the playoffs, where he was every single night. And there's some rust with that. But what I've seen this year, and I talked about it, even though they lost to Utica on Sunday, They lost Adam Engstrom to injury. I'm not entirely sure how serious that is at this point. When we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to watch Adam Engstrom here and David Reinbacher here and everything that he does. And he's smart with his stick. He's using that reach. He's using his ability to move for a guy that's his height and has that kind of awkward stride a little bit. He moves very well, makes the right decision with the puck, uses his stick effectively. He's everything you would want in a reliable puck-moving stay-at-home defenseman there. He's not, Mike Matheson. He doesn't have that kind of finesse and speed with it, but he's everything you would want paired with somebody who's like Lane Hudson or Matheson or Dobson, who wants to kind of go down the ice there. He's your safety valve there. He covers ground well. His shot's gotten much better in the last 2 years, and I don't know if that's just without being able to skate, that he was working on that all the time, working on upper body strength and everything. He gets some serious velocity behind that. And even though he's not the most deft playmaker, everything he does just makes sense. Even if it's just, it's the safe pass up the wall. It's the outlet over to my other D partner there, and I'm going to rotate up there. Everything about his game is just the little details there. And I think Marty's going to love him. And my thought for this year, and I'm pretty sure I said it earlier on the show this year when you guys had me on and we talked about the Rocket, is I think he's going to get his cup of coffee in the NHL this year. Once they've gotten to that point in the season, I think they're going to give him a taste there, and they're not going to throw him in the deep end. They're not going to be like, hey, we're going to do what we did with Logan Mailloux, and we're going to throw you on the top pair in the last 2 games of the season here. They're going to give him that opportunity. They might pair him with a Caden Gooley or someone who can kind of be that young veteran presence with him in that to kind of insulate him a little bit. And I think that'll be a big moment for him. The point totals aren't going to jump off the board, but that was never David Reinbacher's game. Right. It was never a points thing. It was always here's all the little details he does right that don't show up on the score sheet. And that stuff wins you games. His pairing, regardless of who it's with, is usually taking most of those defensive minutes. They're responsible for keeping the puck out of the net. And he does that pretty well overall.
And that is something that is missing on this team. We talk about it all the time. And I think I speak for all Canadiens fans where, when his cup of coffee does actually happen, we're going to be so excited about it.
Yeah.
All right. One other thing we're excited about is our boys are back in town. There's going to be NHL games as of Wednesday, the Habs games as of Thursday. So let's get excited about the rest of the season. Talk about what's coming up next. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick get you cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. The NHL season resumption, is resumption a word?
Sure.
Is almost upon us, whatever it is. And the Habs are playing the Islanders on Thursday. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the outlook for the rest of the season. There's 25 games left. The trade deadline is coming up in a couple of weeks. And we're here with our wonderful former co-host, Scott Matla. So let's get into it. You know what? I'm going to throw to Ian first this time. What is if I could tell you, if I could ask you for 3 things you expect to happen before the end of the season, what would they be?
I expect that this rest will have done Ivan Demidov some good. So I think he's going to have a really strong last quarter of the season for the Canadiens, which might help him win a Calder. It might help him in that race. He's going to be up against it. Matthew Schaefer also got the rest. We saw it last year with Lane Hudson. He really benefited from that when they went to Four Nations. So for me, that's one of the things I'm looking at. 2, we're still going to be talking about goaltending until somebody figures it out and takes that net, which it looked promising before the season and before the Olympics happened. And, they had that last week, they've had a new coach to be working with in Rocco Marciano. So I think it's goaltending is going to continue to be a thing. It's up to one of those guys over the next 25 games to steal it, to say, this is my net, you're not getting it back. And then on top of that, I mean, Caufield's going after 40, potentially 50 if he gets red hot, which shooters can do. I want to see him get as close to he can as possible to 50. Those are the things that I'm really, other than make the playoffs, kill penalties, that sort of thing. Like those are the things I want to see before the season is up.
All right, Scott, I spotted you an extra couple of minutes to think about it. What are your 3?
My thing is that I don't think the Canadiens are going to finish in the wildcard spot. I think they're going to be 3rd in the Atlantic here. I just look at the strength of schedule, and this division's just a murderer's row. You have Tampa at the top, and you have Montreal, you have Detroit, and then not that far behind that, you have Buffalo, you have Boston, and then it doesn't matter after that. But I think the Canadiens are probably finishing in the 3rd spot in this, just because, like Ian said, the goaltending's a little unsettled there. I think maybe a break will have helped Samuel Montembeault a little bit. He had flashes that he looked better going into the Olympic break, but after that, we've seen it before that it's like, he looked good, and then he looked unplayable, and then I think the break will have been good for both of them. I think it is still Jakub Dobish's net for the time being. And I know people are going to want to call for Jacob Fowler here. I think they're content to let him be the Caden Primo for the Rocket down the stretch here. Kähkönen can handle the load there, but I think that this is Jacob Fowler's coming out moment in this. Coming into the trade deadline here, I'm not expecting a ton of noise. I think this summer will be Kent Hughes' big, flashy move. But I think there are at least probably 2 guys on this team that will not be here post-trade deadline, whether that be from the AHL or the NHL. But I think there's at least 2 guys who will not be here that they are just going to move out and either get picks, a fill-in piece, or something like that. And I think the third thing is I just want to see Ken Suzuki finish again over a point per game. He's 3. He and Hudson are going to top 50 assists, which is mind-blowing because there's 25 games left and they need 1 good game each to get there at this point. I want to see if Suzuki can hit 30 points, and I want to see if Hudson can hit 65 assists on the back half of the season here. And I think that I'd be unwise to bet against them, especially if they get the power play rolling a little bit and they take advantage of maybe some of those weaker games that they play there, whether that be the Rangers, the Predators, the Kings. They play the Sharks twice here, and that could be either really good or it could be really bad, depending on which Sharks team shows up on a given night. So I want to see the milestone chase there. Like Ian said, Caufield's probably going to hit 40. I'd love to see him chase down 50 if he could.
So if I were to ask you, other than Reinbacher and Michael Hadr are off the table, right? Last 2 games of the season, someone gets a cup of coffee. And Florian Xhekaj's already been here. Adam Engstrom's already been here. Who's your my money's on Tuck.
I think it might be Luke Tuck, but this all depends on the WHL playoffs as well. Bryce Pickford, who just came back from injury. He's on pace as a defenseman to score 45 goals this year. I think for the poops and giggles is that you have to why not see what he can do there? I think that if his team goes out early, he will definitely be with the Rocket. He signed his entry-level contract for next year. I think Luke Tuck will definitely be one of those guys potentially called up for that 4th line minute there, or for the 4th line role. They don't play his brother's team anywhere else this season, but I'm struggling to find somebody else who hasn't already had their cup of coffee this year, maybe getting another shot there. Maybe Sean Farrell for a moment or 2, but I think that with the way the new waiver rules work for the rosters, you're not going to see a lot of these AHL guys up at all until after that deadline is passed at this point.
Yeah, I'm talking that last 2 games of the season, novelty call-ups, as I call them.
Yeah.
All right. If there's one thing that you are hoping doesn't happen before the end of the season, what is it? Obviously, you can't say injuries. Like nobody wants any injuries.
Okay, good. I was starting to knock on wood here. I'm like, I can't.
We're knocking on wood.
That's a free square on the bingo sheet, right? Like nobody wants that.
Yes. All right. What's the one thing you're worried about?
Oh man.
Can I go first?
Yes.
Yeah.
The penalty kill doesn't figure it out.
Yeah, it's a big one. I mean, it's. I think the rest, and I think having Gooley back and at full strength will be helpful for that. But I completely agree with you. Like that would be. There's not a lot of simple things we look at and go, if that was better, we'd be better. Like the penalty kill is that one thing. For me, I don't want to see them, just go into the playoffs with their third defensive pair as it is. I think even if it costs you, a third or fourth round pick, just to add somebody who can add some stability for the short term, right shot preferred, but what are you going to do? Just put somebody there, because it can't just be we see Jaden Struble get hot for 3 or 4 games, completely fizzle out. Arbor Xhekaj steps in, gets hot for 3-4 games, completely we can't do that anymore. Like it's not feasible. It's not reasonable to expect that continues. So find another defenseman who can play on that third pair. If you don't, I'm a little disappointed heading into the playoffs.
Scott?
I think for me, it's that the second line cools off, because there's a lot of young guys on there. Slavkovsky just played a really intense tournament where he was the backbone of that Slovakian national team there. He did extremely well in that. He clearly thrives under the pressure, but coming back into this, it's a lot of pressure on Demidov, and there's no reason to think he can't do it. And Kähkönen as well, but it's young guys, and it's a grind down the stretch when whistles start disappearing even more. The games get a little bit more intense, and everything feels like a playoff game. That's the line. I'm not worried about the first line doing that, because Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield have done this forever. Lane Hudson can do this. Mike Matheson can do this. It's that second line there where there's some of those guys that they've played intense games, but this is probably going to be the biggest spotlight so far in their NHL careers and, non-international hockey careers here. That can they survive in that spotlight there? And if they can, the Canadiens are laughing on that. But if there's a little bit of waffling, what can you do to right that ship, stabilize it? Is it shifting the lineup with Alex Newhook coming back? Is it whatever it may be? That's the thing I'm focusing on, because if that line gets a little bit cold, teams are going to load up and they're just going to put a target on Suzuki, Caufield, and Doc, and that's not something I think the Canadiens can super deal with well right now. They might get some odd goals here, but losing 2 of their top 6 lines there is not a recipe for success down the stretch.
I will say one thing about that, though. Like, I feel like, Juraj Slavkovsky went to the Olympics and for the second time, like, really made his mark on it, right? This is not the first time. And I get that there's like disappointment and all of that. And there is always a hangover when it comes to this. But like the way that I choose to see it is that Slavkovsky went to the Olympics and was incredible. And Kähkönen went to the Olympics and showed how good he can be. And Demidov was at home working out and waiting for his guys to come back. And so I feel like for me, it's more likely that there's either a continuation of what we've been seeing, an improvement upon it, then there's a drop off. For me, the biggest X factor, though, is what they do with Alex Newhook, and if that messes everything up.
Yeah, Newhook coming back gives them the option to reunite the Slavkovsky on that top line if they want to do that.
Yeah,
I think that's an underreported aspect of this. Do I think they do that immediately? No, I think they're pretty comfortable letting this ride out and finding a luxury spot for Alex Newhook instead of drive the second line with these rookies. Like I think Newhook coming back is a huge X factor for them, because it just gives them options, right? Stuff that when they were injured, they didn't have. And now they're getting healthy, and they added 2 forwards in Texier and Deneau. They're going to have more options than ever when they come back. Like, it's very exciting to think of what the lines might look like as soon as the day that you're listening to this, or as on Wednesday when all of them return to practice, I'd imagine.
Yes. All right. Any parting thoughts?
I'm trying to think of just a trade target like offhand, and I'm going to go ahead and throw out that Ilya Mikheyev will be a Montreal Canadien at the end of the trade deadline.
That seems like a guy that Hughes would go for it. Like that seems like a player who'd be like, yeah, come penalty kill for us. And he would do that.
He's on Chicago's PK1. He's quick. He can chip in the odd goal. He's got a big frame to it. And, you know, all respect to like, you know, Alexander Texier and everything, but having a little bit of depth like that is not the end of the world. We're not paying him to be a top 6 forward anymore, but if he wants to come kill penalties and they need to work on it, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah.
For me, I'm still watching for a line A trade. They only do it if there's a corresponding move. Otherwise, there's no point to do it. Very curious because there's been a lot of smoke. I saw there was a Finnish publication that was like, he's good as gone. He's going to the Kings. And it's like, I don't know what to make of that. It's very funny.
I don't think
happens.
so because
I would, if it's accurate, we need to bone up on our Finnish apparently, because we need to know these sorts of things.
Truly, like it's because LA makes sense. We talked about it multiple times on this on this show. LA makes sense for him. Doesn't mean he's going there. Doesn't mean there's a trade to be worked out there. We'll see what happens. All right. I want to thank you for being on, Scott. Where can people find your Laval Rocket coverage?
Habs Eyes on the Prize, recaps for most of the games, unless I am busy either getting tattooed or at a work event for other things on that. And then you can follow me on Blue Sky. You can just find me. I'm the only one posting Rocket clips, I'm pretty sure, on Al Gore's internet here. So, and then, I'm not on the other side anymore. So Blue Sky or Habs Eyes on the Prize.
And we want to thank you all for tuning in today to Locked On Canadiens. We have a very special guest tomorrow. We're going to call him a listener favorite, but he hasn't been here in a while. That's our bad. Our people didn't talk to his people. But if you want to hear about prospects, tomorrow is the time to listen to the show. So make sure you're subscribed to and that you follow Locked On Canadiens so you get all the latest episodes. And you can find us all over social media. We're on TikTok, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Locked On Canadiens. My co-host is on social media at Maybe It's Ian. I am at The Active Stick. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Canadiens ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you who are on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure your second listen is NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. They cover all the games, and sometimes you'll find clips of us there as well. I'm going to thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Scott, for being on, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.